I'm here for it.
I love it. I'm never not going to be me either, so we're
Uh,
good.
we are good and we are live. So, hello everyone. We are back for another Inner Tapestry episode, and today we are talking about shadow and light, which is such a juicy damn topic. I'm so excited to have this
Mm.
conversation with you, Red, because there has been so much misinformation and misunderstanding about what light and shadow actually constitute of, and I hope that we can shed some light and some shadow for people today, so that they're not so scared. So let's just orient. Red, if you are willing to go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name is Red Eagle. I am a psychic. I'm the healer's healer. I'm a catalyst, and I've been working in this field of energy, light, and shadow for decades. And this is a subject that I am extraordinarily passionate about in all of my students. I talk about the difficult subjects. I have classes and have taught classes for years where um, there's a perception that I'm only going to talk about the juicy light things. I'm only going to be in this most amazing positive place, and I'm like, that's not real. And it can make it tricky. It can make it tricky if you're not ready for that. So I love that we're going to discuss and untangle some perceptions, because it's not that the perceptions are wrong. I sway away from right and wrong in discussions, right? I prefer to untangle, where do these things come from,
Yeah.
and how can we untangle it and make it real and fit and be healing and cohesive and co-creative. Like, we all need each other, and this is such a big heavy topic and a juicy topic. I love how you said that. Juicy, very juicy.
I love that word,
Juicy.
of course. So thank you for that. Yes, and I like to shy away from right and wrong too. And of course, that's like societal programming. Is sometimes we fall back into these black and white, and even the shadow and the light is not as black and white as we think it is, because it's so interconnected. And we're going to get into all of that. So I'm Safrianna Luna, the Queer Spirit Guide. I've been doing this stuff not quite as long as Red, but pretty much since I was 18, I've gotten into the energy work side of things, and then went on to be a therapist, and that's a lot of shadow work, getting into therapy. And I loved this exploration that's unfolded since I've even stepped away from a therapeutic model, that has opened me to more of the breadth of what this means. So where I'd like to orient first, what comes to mind for me is to just orient us to the concept of nature versus nurture. Because some people think nature versus nurture is shadow versus light, and it's not. And I want to clarify that, because this is my chart I've been working on. It's like this wild conglomerate right now. I've got a digital copy too, and they're probably not synced at all, but there is a nature of our light and a nature of our shadow, and there is a nurture of our light and a nurture of our shadow. So let's
Mm-hmm.
discuss nature versus nurture first. What comes to mind for you there?
I think I'm going to start with the nurture of shadow, I guess, maybe, because I'm going to go to the deep, sticky stuff, of course, right? Go to all the way to the
I
bottom.
love it.
Um, so the perception that you're bad, or if you go to this place of shame, disappointment, fear, that you're bad, that you are somehow not sufficient.
Mm,
You are not qualified to have those experiences. You're not qualified to have the emotions. You should not feel shame, or you should not feel angry, or you should not feel um, upset, rage. Whatever the range of the emotions is,
right.
right? That to be a light entity, you have to only think positive thoughts. That's it. That's all you
Oh,
can do. To be an advanced light entity, you can only think positive thoughts. Oh my goodness. Stop. Stop devaluing stop de devaluing, disconnecting from the amazing experience of being in a human meat suit with the cacophony of range of emotion. Now,
Mhm.
yeah, I come from the perspective of pretty much everything boils down to one of two emotions, and technically you can transmute one into the other. So, yeah, all emotion is one thing. Yeah, we could go there. That's a really high philosophical perspective of something, but you can't really get there until
Right.
you have wallowed in the anger, the rage, the shame, the I I had a very visceral experience many years ago, and I sought out a psychologist. I mean, I sought out like a psychiatrist psychologist, and I went in and I went, I am truly crazy, and and he goes, why do you say that? And I went, these are my fantasies, and he went, well, why do you think you're having those fantasies? And we went through this whole like chair talk therapy exploration of where all these images and fantasies were coming from. And he goes, yeah, there's nothing wrong with you. You're not crazy. You're actually processing all of this really well. This is really good. And I went, but there's something wrong, right? And he goes, oh no, there's nothing wrong. You're fine. And I walked out of there even more confused. And and that was way a long time ago. So
Right.
this is like before I had kids, like kind of at the very beginning of when I started teaching art classes and I started teaching
Mhm.
metaphysical, spiritual type things. And it really triggered that nurture shadow, right? Like, how am I going to get at the bottom of this and find out where is it coming from? Why am I feeling it? And is it okay to feel that?
Mm.
And I walked out of that session with all this permission that, yeah, you're just normal. And yet at the same time, I'm like, but is it normal?
All that
And is it
programming.
okay? Right? And that really is what started this really deep dive of understanding that shadow and light is the exploration, in my perspective, of the shades of gray. And I'm not
Mhm.
talking about that book. I'm talking about the
No.
experiential I'm talking about the experiential emotional journey of the shades of gray, because in all light, there is a shade of that shadow. And in the shadow, there is this amazing light that emerges. There is no right or wrong emotion. There is
Right.
no right or wrong emotion ever, ever.
Yes. It's all in that. It's the energetic perception of it. And this is, in that nurture. So, nature versus nurture. Nature, our actual core self. Nurture, everything we've been taught to believe about ourself.
Uh huh.
And when we're taught, because in this society, there is so little acceptance of the shadow. And oh my gosh, there's like 5 trillion things that my brain is like, and you need to say this, and you need to say, like, there's so many important things here. But in
Yeah.
the nurture away from our shadow, we've lost half of our nature.
Mm-hmm.
We've literally
100%.
lost half of our nature because what I've really realized is the light is the seen, the shadow is the unseen. We can bring anything unseen to the seen point, and then it's no longer unseen. That shadow has been integrated into the light. Now it can circle back into the shadow and it can kind of keep regenerating itself because the shadow
Mm-hmm.
creates the light creates the shadow. It's this constant reciprocal relationship. And all nurture's not bad either, right? There's no one thing that's right or wrong or good or bad. It's all in how it's approached and the energy behind it. A majority of our nurture came from a place of shame and fear and scarcity, or like, if you don't do this, you're not going to fit in. And so we just kind of cut off because of course we wanted to fit in. Of course we wanted to show up and be loved and accepted. So we cut off some of our light selves too, some of our seen qualities of our nature, and we basically exiled it into the shadow,
Oh,
which is
yeah. Well, I mean, if you think about the the nature of who we are as an entity, right? So I like to go back to that all the time. Who we are as an entity and how we manifest in this meat suit. So you have your natural number, and that's that filter system for all the things. And the nature of that natural number has certain qualities. And every single natural number manifestation of your blueprint has a shadow and a light. You're going to default to a place through your meat suit in a certain way based on your natural number and the nurture influences of other natural numbers and their shadow.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are not willing to express and feel and journey through that, you're only going to circle the drain. You're going to go around the same things over and over again. Now, cool thing this morning, my daily devotional that came through was really, as I was doing the daily devotional, I was like, and I'm going to talk to Safrianna today about light and shadow. And one of the cards that came up was Crow. And
Mm-hmm.
Crow is an amazing creature that brings us layers of truth, right? Crow wants you to speak your truth, say your truth through your experience of your truth, and will teach you the lessons of that truth little bit by little bit, right? So, like, I use the analogy of going to school and learning math. You don't go to first grade and learn calculus. Well,
Mm-hmm.
rarely, right? Generally speaking, you learn addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and then you start adding letters to it, and it gets really convoluted. At least it does for me.
Same.
Right? So it's the same thing with shadow and light. It's the same thing. You express a piece of that shadow, you explore it, you wallow in it, you experience it, and you go, I figured it out, it's great. And then you go around the corner and there it is again. And you're like, I thought I did that. I just went through this. But it's deeper and it's more subtle, or it's more slam you in your face, or, oh, you did this? Great. Now we're going to give you the next algebra problem, right? Like, now we're going to add X's and Y's and A's and B's and parentheses
Mm-hmm.
in it. Like, and shadow and light exploration is a layer cake, and the Crow brings us that. Like, that's what came through this morning, and I talked about that.
Yeah.
And when you're looking at nature of shadow and nurture of shadow and nature and nurture of light, if you're only willing to look at the light, you miss the depth and breadth of the potentiality that you bring as an entity into this meat suit experience.
Yes.
You just
Absolutely.
literally cut off your legs and wandering around, wondering why you're shorter than everybody else.
Yes.
Like, stand up, like, stand
Yes.
up.
Yes. And when I've been going through making my beautiful messy chart right here,
I love that.
the the light and the shadow also corresponds to masculine and feminine energy. And society is not doing great with our understanding of masculinity and femininity, and we tie it overly into genitals, or we tie it overly into one archetypal way of being and not the breadth of it. So I don't even want to get into that, except to say that the shadow being the feminine and society really not doing well with the feminine right now at all, uh, also is indicative of why we have this relationship with the shadow where we're like, no, I don't want to look at that. And what we're missing there is we're missing our capacity to receive. We're missing our capacity to step into our subconscious and to receive. We're missing our ability to be rather than do, and have to be productive and to be moving, because that's what the light is. Even in nature, even when it's aligned, the light is still mostly about action. It's mostly about giving. And so if we're like, nope, shadow's just not for me, nature, nurture, don't care, right? Then we're missing this level of human experience. That's, the legs literally cut out from under us.
Oh yeah. I mean, this is some of the depth of where we could go with it. So I'll just touch a little bit. But if you're looking at the legends in different parts of the world, right? The mythos and the undercurrent of the lessons of our ancestors. Different parts of the world look at the different celestial bodies with different masculine and feminine, right?
Mhm.
So you can look at it from those different lenses. And I go also back to, because of some of the legends that I grew up with as a kiddo, like, of course, I'm going to resonate very much sun, father, mother, moon, right?
Mhm.
And that's shadow. But if you think about it a little bit more deeply, you see that the moon has the face which is bright. Bright is a reflection of that sun in the sense that not a reflection of the masculine, but she has an aspect of that strength and that masculinity. But then
Mhm.
when she turns to the dark side of the moon, I think that's a movie. I think there's a song about that too. That the dark side of the moon shows the ability to absorb in, and then the moon turns again, and then there's a reflection back out. There's a strength in there, right?
Mhm.
And the next layer of that, which I've been challenging this paradigm that men are strong for a very long time. And not from a, and I really want it to be received not in this challenge of the feminist, right? Like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that at all. Because I go back to a base biological fact. If you are biologically born with the ability to grow a whole nother human meat suit in your womb, okay, to grow a whole nother meat suit in your womb, if you have a womb and you can do that, and you've experienced it, there's a layer of understanding, well, both from scientific and research that they've done, is that your very bones are leached of the minerals and nutrients that are needed to create that whole nother meat suit.
Mhm.
Okay. And if you've been through a birthing experience, and I've been through it twice with no medication, we could get to that to a whole different thing. Um, there is a trauma that happens to your body when you give birth. Now,
Right.
some women have a better birth experience than others. It's a whole different topic, but your body goes through a fundamental biological shift and change, and your body is never the same after you have grown a new meat suit and given birth to a new meat suit.
Right.
Period. There is, you cannot go back. You can only move forward.
Right.
So women have this internal and external, if you give her the chance, she can bring it forward. This ability to anchor into this strength that is not comparable to a patriarchal societal expectation of what a man's strength is. A man's strength is, I'm going to protect my woman, I'm going to be able to hunt and fish and lift heavy weights and provide for my family, and whatever that paradigm is that you've been married to in your life. Okay, we'll just
Right.
chuck it and put it in this little bucket, right? But have you ever met a man that wasn't actually just this squishy, soft, emotional, fragile entity? Have you ever met
Right.
one that wasn't? I have not. I have
Not
never met a
under
man
not under the surface.
underneath right, underneath that facade that they have
Mhm.
borrowed. They are these amazing, beautiful, gentle, nurturing creatures that have this biological need to connect and feel nurtured and feel seen. I don't care
Yeah.
what their natural number is. I don't care how masculine they want to come across. We have masculinity wrong.
Yes,
We
we
have it
do.
wrong in our Western society. Because in reality, women are tough nuts. We are just, like my husband has said, like, you got brass balls bigger than anybody I know, right? Like, there's a perception that testosterone is what makes men strong.
Mhm.
And we're back to the discussion of shadow and light.
Yep.
When I think of a sunny day, right? It's spring and I'm going to go out in the sunshine and the days are longer and I'm going to experience the sun. I'm a pale white pasty redhead, so I put a hat on because I will fry. That's strength in sunlight, right? Like that's too much intensity.
Mhm.
And we've but in the spring you want to experience the sun and you want to see the grass growing, getting the nurture and the light from the sun, and we want to see the grass growing and we want to see baby bunny rabbits and life exploding around us, and that's this life thing, right? This is this light perception thing. But have you ever stood outside in August in a field with no trees and it's hot and it's roasting the ground around me and I'm dying, right? Like, can you tell I don't do
Right.
deserts very well? Anyway, so we've taken this light image of masculinity, of nurture, and we have over intensified it to that the idea of masculinity is, instead of this amazing, soft, squishy, connecting, masculine, nurturing energy that is there underneath, but we've turned it into a 500-degree roasting experience, and it's
Yes.
overwhelming, and there's no realm to see the shadow, there's no realm to bring forward the softness of
Mhm.
that light.
Yeah.
We don't allow it, and we then look at women and go, we don't want you to shine any of your light.
Because there's too much out here already. It's too hot. No, thank you.
It's
Right?
too hot, right? Like, god forbid, we don't want any more of that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
There's no balance. The balance of shadow and light is twisted. It's become a place of power and control and not an experiential connection between two human beings, entities who are living the human experience. And it's turned into this whole other thing.
Yeah.
And I embrace my brass balls, darn it. I
Yeah.
embrace them.
That's it's the we all have both of these dualities within us. And when
Yes.
we're trying to
Oh my
fit one side of the spectrum in extreme, we're missing out on the other half. Now, we're not most of us are probably not perfectly 50-50, right? We're
God. Nope.
75-25 or 30-70, or something unique to
Yeah.
us. But none of us
Mhm.
are 100-0. And when we're trying to operate in 100-0, things get really, really out of whack because that's based on the nurture. That's based on this is
Mhm.
how you have to perform and this is how you have to be. And it's such an interesting thing because, yes, society has so pushed us to be all in the light, to be all in the doing, to constantly be giving. But even in the example you were sharing of giving birth, right? And the fact that the the person bringing that new life forward loses. They give part of themselves for that new life,
Yep.
right? So even that's proof that women who are 100% in their nature are still giving, right? And
Yep.
receiving. And we have to figure out what is this balance within ourselves. And so again, if we're avoiding, we're like, nope, I'm just going to cut the shadow half off. I'm not looking at that. We're
Yeah.
so what are we? Instead of being 100%, we're 30%, if
Less
that's
than
30% of our nature,
we're
or
less than even half. You can't even be half if you're cutting off that connection.
right?
You know,
Because they so
probably
inform.
one of right. And I think one of the my husband at the very beginning of our relationship was actually a student of mine, ironically. So he took some classes and we did shadow work classes, right? Like this is before we were dating, and years go by and I have a physiological thing where I kind of withdrew from everybody. I kind of went into my own thing, and he said something to me. He goes, "You're the strongest woman I know, but you are also the most fragile. And I want to help you when you're fragile because I know I can do that." And I thought,
Mm,
huh. And I sat with it and I let that sink in. And then we had this amazing conversation about he was in a place where he could recognize that he knows he's a soft, squishy, emotionally, like he wants to be able to honor my fragility because he already knows he's done the work. He's like, I am fragile. I am not a strong masculine person. Like, I am fragile. Like, he is a soft, squishy, emotional. amazing entity, and he's so strong, right? But he knows where the shadow is in that, and he knows where he doesn't shine. He knows that there are things that I do just naturally, being a woman and being in my strength and grabbing hold of my brass balls and running with it. But he also recognized I can't do that all the time. And I was trying to force myself to do that all the time because he had embraced so much of his own
Mhm.
masculine self with this whole plethora of shadow and light. And I wanted to honor him. So I was trying to do too much. And he went,
Mhm.
wait a minute. I can help with that. And I went, fuck yeah, you can help with that, please.
And
Right?
that's that the balance that can occur when we're embodying and embracing all of it.
Yeah. And it's valuable to recognize and to go into a little bit deeper of shadow and light. This is where if you've got trauma, if you've got interpersonal connections, if somebody's pushing the edge of that and you're not willing, if you just do what I've heard people do, like, I don't want to think negative things. I don't want to go there with my mind. I don't want to think that thing about that person. I don't want to go into a bad spiral with my thoughts, right? I'm not saying wallow there,
Mhm.
but acknowledge that your mind wants to go there. Your body has a feeling, your mind has a feeling, your spirit is trying to work through that. I was having, back to the very first example, right? Like, I was having really kind of scary thoughts.
I mean, so that's in my conceptualization here of light and shadow and the nature versus nurture, and I've gone in online and started to expand this even more to the harmonized light and shadow, the neutral light and shadow, and the disharmonized light and shadow, because they can
Yeah.
absolutely be both. But this was sort of the seed
Oh,
of
yeah.
that. Like, disharmonized shadow is our trauma, right? It's our
Yeah.
suffering we've experienced. It's the parts of us we've repressed and we've exiled
Hmm.
away. It's all of those limiting beliefs and the unspoken feelings and the family secrets. Like, of course, we wouldn't
Whew.
want to go there, right? We're like, ugh. But when we harmonize that, we bring some light to it, we're receptive to what's there. We also will find, sometimes I see, our desires and our dreams that are underneath all of the unharmonized shadow. And then, knowing that, having looked at it, listened to the signal to go there, we're able again to bring that into the light and bring it forward to be manifested and worked with. And then, so that's really like when we're in this relationship between the light and the shadow, that's exactly what it is. It's I go into the dark and I retrieve the next gem that was hidden here and I bring it out into the light and I play with it and I do stuff with it and I create. And then that has it's had its life and now I go back into the shadow and I retrieve the next little gem. And when we view it as
Hmm.
this cycle rather than this hardcore experience, like if we're allowed to take it as an ebb and a flow and a coming in and an out instead of a that's going to bang me over the head with a hammer and make me do the damn work, that's what ends up happening when we avoid the shadow. We have mental
Right.
breakdowns.
Well, and there's a layer in this too of, and I'm going to go to the masculine place because in our culture, men have many men, not all of them, but many of them, women too, depending on their background, their nurture, right? They have this deep resistance to going to seeing a counselor or to
Mhm.
doing talk therapy or doing some of these different techniques because there is a genuine lack of understanding mixed with fear that to heal, you have to do it all in one fell swoop. So there's that dynamic, fear, understanding, misunderstanding, or the innate nature of the shadow of that natural number that wants to get it done all at one time and thinking, well, I've just done the work, it's fine now. Not understanding that the harmonious part of healing, like you said, is to go in, grab the thing, play with it, bring it forward, allow it to emerge. And I will throw another word in here, finding the coherence in that exploration of that gem. Because when you bring harmonious energy from shadow into light to make it a part of you, it becomes part of you, it becomes part of the coherent energy of that cycle of that emergence. And yeah, I totally had 100% and I know you've had it too, Safrana, like any of us that when we talk about doing the shadow work, we have these experiences where like, oh, that's that's big. Oh, I need to breathe. I need to really like, okay, okay, that feels like I got rid of a huge chunk. And you're like, okay, I can do this. And you're like, okay, now I can take a breather, right? Like, okay, I need to sit with this a little bit. And then you get another whammy and you're like, wait a minute, I wasn't ready for that. But you were ready. You didn't know you were ready, but you were ready. And those of us who have done the heavy lifting, right? The work, this big shadow thing that's this bigger overarching scary thing, which it's not.
Not as scary as the monster under the bed we think is there.
Oh, right. It's not as scary. And if you use we have so many tools now. Like when I started teaching shadow stuff, all I knew how to do to teach shadow stuff was look at the myths and legends of the moon and the goddess images and the father sage, boy father sage images from many of the Western European. But then I also integrated things like um, Turtle Island and Mother Spider, Grandmother Spider, and some of and I used a lot of like coyote stories because coyote is all about shadow work. Coyote is the trickster,
Mm.
and there's misunderstandings about where some of these legends come from, like the big monster under the bed, like some of the older Sasquatch from different legends. The Sasquatch is this big, scary, horrible, he's going to eat your children thing, but yet, but yet, there's this, in Western mythos, we've made it something else, right? But and in some native legends, Sasquatch is the big brother, the teacher, right? So if you look at all these myths and legends about fathers eating their young and the trickster is going to trick you into doing this horrible thing, there's a shadow lesson in every single one of them. It's not a story to make you afraid of something. Every single one of these legends and stories of the big scary monster under the bed, right? Is not it's never about what you from Western perspective of the black and white, right? That this is clearly the lesson in here, right?
Mhm.
And I've done a lot of study of philosophy, so of course I've studied Plato and Socrates, and like I've done the deep dive into the old Greek, Roman, and even some of the Egyptian philosophies and stuff. And the thing when you look at these stories, they all have a shadow lesson. They all
Mhm.
have that piece. So when I started teaching shadow work, that's all I had access to. Now the paradigm, we have done research, we have brain science, we understand more about why sleep is important, and we understand more about why hydration is important. We understand the physical body in a way that has taken some of the Eastern understanding of medicine, the Western understanding of medicine, and proven the theories, right? We've
Mhm.
proven the theories of how things are working. So we now have more tools. We don't just have the stories. We now have a little bit of science to back up what these stories of how to work through shadow and light have been telling us for
Right.
eons. And so when people are resisting counseling or they're resisting EMDR or dialectical behavior therapy or talk therapy or all these different tools, right? Or, you know, meditation or breathing or whatever it is, right? Like they're resisting the fundamental tools that have always been there, and they're resisting the science that's proving it to be the tool that's been here the whole time.
Mhm.
And the resistance is their fear, And it's okay to be resistant if you can acknowledge that you're afraid. That's always the first step.
Yep, I know that one inside and out. It's like my partner I live with sees this all the time. Like I do everything scared. Every time I'm about to go live, I'm shaking. Every time I'm about to get on stage, I'm shaking. Every time I sit down to write, I'm shaking. Like I have this fear that just comes with me. It's my little buddy. And since I've stopped ignoring it doesn't stop me from doing the thing anymore. That's the thing. When I
Right.
was trying to ignore it, I just wouldn't write, or I just wouldn't get on live, or I just wouldn't speak on stage.
Yes.
Now that I've
Oh my God,
acknowledged the
yeah.
shadow of the fear is there, I'm just like, all right, buddy, let's go. We're
Yeah.
just gonna go. You're gonna go, and I'm doing this because it's like a little kid, right? This little scared kid, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
just like, okay, I can do it while you're shaking against me. That's fine. And
Yeah.
the reality, if we just think of the physical life living right now, and you think about, I'm picturing my other partner was visiting, standing in the kitchen, and we were talking about shadow and light, and they were like, well, my shadow, I can see my shadow on the floor, it's right here, right? And then if you like change your angle, the shadow's still there. You might not be able to see it, but it's still there. So no matter how much
Mm-hmm.
we're running from or trying to turn our gaze away from the reality of it, it's there.
Mm-hmm.
So what if we actually acknowledge it? We're like, again, hey buddy, come on. I had this image come through. It was during one of my moon calls. I don't remember if it was a Gemini moon or what, but for some reason I got into this shadow and light and picturing this black and white marble. If you can picture a sphere that right down the middle, one half is white and one half is black. Okay. So you with me? And if I have it turned this way, I only see the white. If I have it turned this way, I only see the black. But when I'm turning it like this and I'm looking at it in 3 dimensions, I'm constantly getting a different relationship between the shadow and the light, the black and the white. But they're both there the whole time. It's just like, that dark side and light side of the moon. The other side of the moon is there. We're just either seeing it or not seeing it, depending on the way the light is shining.
Okay, so I'm gonna throw another thing in there because I love this. So if you think about like those that can visualize, like there's a thing that you there are people that can't visualize, right? Like they
Mm,
can't you explain something and they have no image in their brain.
mhm.
Okay? You have that?
Yeah.
Okay. My husband has that too. Boggles my mind. I don't understand how you function, but I love you anyway. In the layer of this visualization, which is gonna might be a little tricky, but we're looking at discussions that have come up with people all the time about moving into this new earth, this new dimension, this new awareness of thing, right? Shadow and light becomes even more important because most people perceive fourth and fifth dimension to have time being the fourth dimension and awareness and the use of all these dimensions goes into five. There's philosophies about all this, right? But new earth, dimensional consciousness awakening into another layer of connection, time has nothing to do with it. Time has nothing to do with the fourth dimension because time is its own thing. It's way out there in the 24th, 25th dimension of something that I don't even know how to explain. The fourth dimension is the awareness of connection to the layers of shadow and light that we all carry. And that awareness is the acceptance and the ability to pull forward through time, because time's not a thing, into this connection of no longer being disconnected. You have to do the journey through the shadow and the light to come into a place where you recognize that we all have shadow and light.
Mhm.
And to get to that new earth place, you have to recognize the entity living in the meat suit that is experiencing the dichotomous experience of the shadow and the light to come into coherent harmony for everyone. That's
Yes.
the only way we get to New Earth.
Yes. Oh, and that's like my mission here
Of course.
is to help people find this harmony and balance within themselves, unique to them. Again, like we all have different micro levels of these energies, but we have to have access to both. We have to have access to both in order to move into another level of harmony on a collective level. And so the more of us that anchor in, I'm seeing it literally like anchoring in the
Yes.
shadow and the light, like anchoring it
Uh-huh.
in, that we
Hmm.
have access to both, that we're not afraid of either, that we're, I mean, and if we're afraid, that we just bring it along with us, right?
Yeah.
That we need this connection to create the inner harmony, to reflect it back out into the world. And there are a lot of healers out there that want to avoid one half. I struggled to use the word healer there because then they're not really doing healing work, they're doing bypassing work. And there's a lot of spiritual practitioners that do bypassing work where they're like, I've literally had a person in my life, no longer in my life, but for for this reason, I'm sure that they were like, "Oh, I don't need to look at my shadows or any of my old traumas or experiences because I just shapeshift them into a new form and I let them go." I'm like, "So
Mm,
what new form did you shapeshift them into if you didn't actually like look at them or process them?" Like it doesn't, you can't just do that.
well,
You
and
can
I
shapeshift
find
it
it.
into something.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you can. I mean, it's a form of transmutation and transformation, right?
Mhm.
But I like that you use the phrase bypassing. I've struggled finding my own word for it because that is exactly what it is. They're just bypassing the journey. And I too have had these experiences with people who, and you find it a lot. There's podcasts out there. There's people who are putting videos out there. They're writing books, and it kind of seems to come up a lot in some of the self-help things, and not in a healthy way, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like the healthy journey through the shadow and the light is the experiential journey. You've made friends with fear and you're bringing fear with you, right? Like fear still triggers. It's still there, but you're bringing it, you're acknowledging it, you're nourishing the fear so that the fear can start to unlayer, right? And you can find the gems in the fear. Where is the lesson in the fear? Where is this beautiful experience that fear brings you so you can see another side of it?
Mhm.
Um, and what too many of these bypassing healers are doing is I'm gonna stereotype, so I'm gonna clarify this before I go into it, because it could probably be triggery for somebody, a little bit defensive will come up, and I know this, but this is shadow work, right? Like I'm poking this puppy on purpose.
Yes.
Okay? Example. Um, I'm gonna take a couple stories and make them into one. So this person is a healer and she talks to angels only. She's only going to talk to angel entities. That's it. That's all she's going to do. She's only going to pull from the Bible. She's only going to go with Jesus and God. She's only going to talk about the way Jesus wants us to live. You see where I'm going here? Like this is a very specific, and she's accepted that her primary guide is the Archangel Michael, and he slews out, pulls his flaming sword and knocks all of the demons out of people's bodies. And she is forcing these people to have this amazing experience to grow. And when they get off of her table and they come out of her room, they are completely cleansed of the demons. And they're like, okay, okay, really?
I wish, right? Wouldn't that be great?
Right? So I don't want it to sound like I'm devaluing this healer's experience. She has a deep belief in this thing, or man, this man or woman who has this deep belief in the healing power of the connection of these entities. If you want to call them angels, great, awesome. Maybe they're her primary, guide is an angel entity. Great, awesome, wonderful. Whatever floats your boat. Awesome. I'm glad you're helping people. Awesome. But, and, but, the person on your table that has had this experiential experience of having the demons slown, I don't even have the proper verb for that, out of their body, right? Like you've excised the demons. or out of their energy field, or whatever, however you want to perceive it. I'm using a pretty drastic stereotype here, but what has that person done in their work to help them understand whatever happened? Have you removed the shadow, or have you put a band-aid on top of something that is masking the journey of that shadow? Okay.
Mhm.
Now, you might come back to me and say, well, they did have a negative entity attached to their field, or they had a hole in their energy field and you needed to heal it. I spend a lot of time working with people. And there is a very deeply seated fear based paradigm in our society that when people have experiences that are uncomfortable or scary, they go to this place of, this person attacked me with a curse. This person attached their negativity to me. This person is a narcissist and is gaslighting and abusing me. And this person is a energy vampire and they suck the life force from me, right? Like, we use these very triggery words to reinforce the fear. And that is a result, I think, of the healer not being willing to look at their own shadow journey and reinforcing somebody else's inability to face their own shadow journey.
Mhm. Yep.
I
Quick
had
fix.
I had an experience about 2 years ago. Somebody came to me. She had been to me a couple times, and she had had this experience. And I didn't. I hope I didn't devalue the experience, but I definitely asked lots of questions. I was like, because I definitely got the impression that no, she wasn't being cursed. She wasn't being attacked. Like, she had an experience that was scary, and she wanted me to fix it. And there are lots of tools you can use. Like, have you taken an Epsom salt bath? Have you cleaned your house? Have you grounded your house? Have you honored the entity of your house? Have you connected into earth? Like, I got tools, man. I got all kinds of tools, right? But all of those tools go back to one place. You have to do your work. And if you need help with that work, I'm not a licensed counselor as of today. I'm not a licensed counselor. That might change tomorrow. I don't know. But as of today, I'm not a licensed counselor. So I'm going to tell you, go find a counselor. Find one that works for you and explore where that fear comes from.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean that somebody's not attacking you. Somebody could be attacking you. They could be attacking you out of their own fear, their own discomfort. Because what happened in that exchange with that client is she turned on me. She made me the enemy because I didn't fix it,
The desire for the quick fix. Yeah.
right? So it became her shadow come to me as a light healer to fix the problem, give her the tool, give her the answer, take the thing away from her, make it go away. And I just handed her back her shadow. I gave her tools. I did give her tools. People walk away with tools all the time with me,
Yeah.
but they're not easy, right? Like, you have to do the work. And she didn't like that. So then I became the enemy. I did get attacked. And I took the whole thing in and went, okay, did I do the right thing? Did I walk through the steps? Why do I feel this way? What is my shadow response to that
Mhm.
attack? Right? Like, I did my work. I really sat in that. And my husband will tell you that was awful for me. I was a mess for about a week. I felt so guilty and so like,
Yeah,
oh my God, I just wanted to help. And
you
why
did.
did it turn out this way? And what's happening? And like, I took good notes and I gave all these tools. Like, walked through my shadow. And in walking through my own shadow, I came to that place of grace, that place of peace, that place of finding the beautiful gem in the lesson, going, yeah. And you knew, Red, you knew when she walked in the door and started talking that she was going to have a hard time with this. And you did what you always do. You just you gave it back. You did it as gentle as you could. But the one thing I didn't do is ask her, are you ready to deal with the shadow of this? Because if
Right.
you're not ready to deal with the shadow of this, I will not be able to help you. Here's your money back. Go out back out the door. Like,
Yes.
right? I didn't do that. That was my lesson. That's my shadow experience. That's me learning. That's me going, thank you, universe, for bringing me that. I
Yes.
still feel bad about the experience, clearly, right? Clearly, there's a little bit of me that still wishes that I could have helped, but I also honor that woman's journey and where she was, and I honor the gift that she brought me through her shadow to lead me to my own shadow and lead me from the shadow into the light to be able to use that to bring light and the shadow lesson to the next client. And healers do that.
Yes.
If healers are not doing that, they're not healing and they're not helping you.
Mm.
And I, I don't know. I
Yes. Like if you have a healer who is unwilling to look at their own shadow, it's not a great sign. It's a red flag because again, you are a whole entity. You are the black and white marble. You have both halves. If you're only looking at one or the other, you are missing half the picture.
well, you're multidimensional, right? So you're a
Yes.
multidimensional, quantumly connected entity living inside a meat suit. Your meat suit perspective is the dark and light marble. That's your meat suit perspective. You, as a multidimensional, quantumly connected entity, understands the facet of the next dimension of where you could possibly go. But it's a really big thing. I'm totally talking in natural number nine language, and I understand that.
Yeah. I'm like, yeah, I get you. And the other 90% of people are like, what?
What? So from natural number one, I'll say it differently. I'll just address the natural numbers. How about I do this? And Safrianna, you can help me with this. So natural number one understands we're all divinely connected. And every experience is that divine connection. And we're all see the beauty and the creativity of the connection, of the possibilities of taking that marble and loving and finding the joy and the beauty of that whole marble, right?
The wonder of every piece of it.
The wonder of every piece of it. Yes, that's one. Okay, so two is twos know that multidimensional connection because they see you and they want you to be authentic and real when you come forward,
Even if you're in the shadow or in the light.
even if you're in the shadow or the light. Three is seeing the joy and the beauty and the crystallization of the possibilities and the details of how you get from that beautiful marble through all of the layers of the shadow to emerge. And the joy that goes with it.
There
Yeah,
is
there's
so
sadness.
much joy in
Oh,
relating to your shadow. Like there's so much
right?
joy that is missed if we don't go there.
Yes, yes. Through those tears comes the smile, right? Four is natural number four is all about the threads of connection we have with each other, and that there's a rhythm and there's a pace that has to be authentic to you in that journey. And if you're not going to bring that authentic connection forward as a multidimensional, quantumly connected entity, you're not going to get through all the marble. You're just not going to get there. But
Yeah.
four is about honoring the pace, and your pace is going to be different than my pace.
Yeah. And
Every
four
blueprint is different.
four really can honor the depth of the
The
shadow.
depth.
going
Yes,
into. We
all the
don't have
way
to
in.
fear the emotion or the stuff under the
Yes,
surface.
yes. Um, 5 is seeing all the interconnected pieces, all of the players on the stage, and the web, the connections of the pieces and the connections of the shadow and the light. And once you point out, and once that 5 understands the depth of the shadow, where the shadow needs to be, where the light is, they will follow the threads and they will follow them all the way to the end because they want to have that completion of following that web.
Man, a 5 that could teach the framework of shadow and light could, really really make sense of it
Right?
for a lot of people.
Because fives also can perceive the multidimensional quality
Mhm,
from a patterning perspective,
mhm.
right? They might struggle depending on the feeling part of it, but they understand and they can intellectually like get there, right? Six, six is all about getting past the fear. A 6 has to get past the fear to see the potentiality of the love and the drive forward to do the thing. Sixes can do this. And they can also look at the energy of the shadow or look at the energy of the light in front of them, whatever that thing is, and they can go, I need to pull back a little bit. That's a little much. Okay, I'm ready to go forward. Oh, nope, I'm pulling back a little bit. They can do that because it's the energy of what's alive through the journey of the shadow and the light. They have the potentiality to create their own momentum in that journey. Like they
Mhm.
can do that. That's an amazing thing about 6. They can push and they can pull through
And
that.
they can pluck. They can say, "Oh,
Yeah.
this is a
Oh,
part of the
this is
shadow that
important.
you wanna look at. Here's the gem. Whoo, here it is.
Woo!
That was
Yes,
alive.
here it
Pluck.
is.
Here you
Yes,
go."
yes. Oh, and the joy that comes from that, that energy is just amazing. Um, 7 is seeing the vastness of the journey, seeing the vastness of the shadow and the light, and understanding that it is a lifelong journey. This is not something I will never perfect my shadow and light journey,
Nope.
and neither will you. I don't care how guru you think you are. I don't care. You are at the bottom every time. Like every new cycle, you start at the beginning of the flow of that cycle. And a 7 knows that. They know it's a big thing and it's so huge. And they know they bring the knowingness of let's take this bite and let's take this bite and let's take this bite and let's have fun with it. Let's find the fun. Let's find the play in that journey. They can bring us all to that.
Yeah, the infinite possibilities of how we can play and dance in the shadow and light too.
Yeah, it's amazing. And God forbid you ignore your shadow and light. That 7 will tell you you are full of shit. Just so you know.
Yes.
But it's a beautiful thing. They never mean it from and a 7 would never come at this from a place of judgment. It's a place of you're lying to yourself and we're going to call you out on it. Because you're not serving yourself. So I can't let you not serve yourself, right? That's the beauty of 7. 8 is 8 is being in the meat suit in the shadow light journey. Like this is where that somatic work, like that feeling, where does the grief sit? Where does the anger sit? Where does your body tell you it's living? How do you get it out? How do you work through the shadow and the light with the body? Dance, move, but be connected, right? Like be connected to earth. What are you putting in your body? What is it that you're putting in your body that gets in the way of you exploring the shadow and the light? What are you ignoring in your
Mm,
body that brings that next beautiful gem forward? And there's a pace in this. Sometimes you have to move really quick, and your body needs to be prepared to move really quick. But sometimes you're trying to force your body to move really quick, and you really need to slow down, and you need a plan, and you need a safety net to work through that part of the shadow and light journey.
mhm.
An 8 brings us that knowingness,
Yeah, that
and
felt knowingness.
that felt knowingness that every shadow and light has its own pace and has its own needs. Like,
And its own
I mean,
impact.
thank you. Its own impact. Yes, very much so. Um, and then 9,
That was easy for me to get into, clearly.
yeah, we kind of started with 9. 9 is the multidimensional knowingness, the connection, knowing that it is a quantumly connected multidimensional experience, even though the natural numbers tell us it's all in this plane, right? But we are emerging into the next plane. So to really understand that, you have to be able to get into all 9, right? You have to understand what each natural number teaches us to truly transform the shadow into in the light and the light into shadow and gain all of the experiences from that to touch on that quantum connection
Mm,
and make that a part of your life, your experiential life, day in and day out, every moment, moving from one moment to the next, because time really doesn't exist. And, and I'll use a terrible example. Somebody asked me recently, she goes, Red, you never get angry. And I went, oh my God, that's like disavowing half of my life. I'm angry about all kinds of shit all the time. But her perception, right, is, and we had to talk about it. Like she's learned to use new language, and the new language was, oh, what I'm, because she's an empath, right? So empaths feel other people's emotions, and of course I'm angry, but I'm angry, sad, happy, accepting, bliss, happy, sad, angry, blissful, blissful, happy, angry, frustrated, sad, confused, shamed, disappointed, afraid. Like I go through all the cycle of all the things
mhm.
like this.
Yeah.
And from her empathic place of being afraid of her shadow, she interpreted that as, I don't get angry. I'm like, are you sure about that? Because there is something that happens when we come into cohesion, coherence, and in harmony with the shadow and the light. The cohesive harmony that comes from allowing yourself to experience the shadow and light of every moment and every experience can appear, because it's an appearance, it can appear to those who are afraid of shadow work as though you have all your shit together.
Right. Spoiler alert, none of us do. Like, that is the
No,
reality. Anyone
fuck
that
no.
pretends otherwise is not, they're avoiding. It's avoidance. That's really, really what it is. So,
Yeah,
there's so much that can be talked about here and so much that can be broken down with this. And I'm just feeling called to take a moment to drop in as we wrap this up and call in if you're ready to face your shadow, if you feel like you have not been able to face it before, to activate a level of gentleness for yourself here, to receive these words and these codes and know that you're allowed to, it doesn't have to be hard and grueling and impossible. You've just led yourself to believe that it had to be that way because of the nurture of society, the avoidance of society. And there is beauty and there is bliss in the shadow too. And so, if you are willing, you can claim this now for yourself. You can claim this willingness and this ability to look into your shadow, to go in to greet it. You can activate this at any time that you choose. It is a matter of belief that you need to cut off your shadow. So if you choose from this moment forward, you can choose to believe that you can look and you can see what's there and you can go in and retrieve all of the gems that are waiting for you. And I know it can be very scary. I know all about fear. But when you walk in with your fear like that little child held to your chest, about halfway through the work, that little kid is going to run off and go find
Mhm.
something to play with, and they're not going to be there anymore. So,
Mhm.
you can do this. We believe in you. We see you. We love you. And
Mm.
I just love Red. I just want to say very quickly that I love this whole time you've been talking. You've been beaming light off of your fingers. So it's
I,
just
I,
been fun.
I don't I don't see what you see. My camera, I can see that like there's ironically, right? Like the dark side of the room is the shadow and I have the sunlight coming in the window and I when I set it up I was like, I can't get it to like even out. And I went, apparently this is the way it's gonna be.
And you've just been sending little light beams this whole time. So I love that. I love you as always.
I love
Thank
you too,
you
Safrianna.
to those of you who watched, whether you watched live or in the replay. Shout out to Kelly who says, I need to face my fears.
Yeah.
We see you. We're in support of you.
Yes.
And yeah, we're just here to cheer you on, to do the blueprint work with you. If you need a guide through the process, both Red and I do our own type of work with that. And we're just here to cheer you on. So thank you.
100%. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. All
You're
right.
amazing, Safrianna.
Thank you. Until next time, we'll be back in another week to have another
In another week.
conversation. Bye for now.